This is your Upper Lake the Ozarks fishing report. Today is November 5th, 2016. This report is courtesy of Joe's Lake Ozark Guide Service. The last report I did 2 weeks ago, water quality wasn't very good. Fishing wasn't real good either. Fish were real scattered, real spread out. The bite was pretty small. Since then, the water conditions have changed a lot. Shad activity has changed. So things have gotten a lot better here in the Upper Osage. The lake level is at 658.5, which is about 1.5 feet below what they would keep it as summer pool. Water temperature in the morning is in the low 60s, gets up to about the mid 60s in the afternoon, so the water temperature is in a perfect condition. And then the water color is a really good stain color. It clears up when you get back in the creeks, but the water's a really good color. The shad activity has picked up in the back of the creeks. I believe we're probably on the back side of the fall turnover. Can't say that for sure, but I know the cloudy, murky conditions that we had a couple of weeks ago that kind of dulled out the shad activity has changed. The water's cleared up. You see shad flipping on top of the surface. You go in almost every major creek that I've gone into the last 2 or 3 days, and shad activity has actually picked up there. It's picked up in the back of the pockets, and we're even seeing shad on the main lake flats. Now, one of the things I've noticed in the creeks also is that the shad have kind of spread out more. They're not just out in the middle of the cove. You still see shad in the middle of the cove or the creek, but they're also kind of graduated over more towards the bank. So that's probably a result of the turnover, and those shad probably just stay there, but I think the bass have kind of followed them in on the bank. The bite is better. It's still not as good as it's going to get. The fish we've caught the last couple of days have been pretty shallow, and the bites have been far more aggressive than they've been 2 weeks prior. And the quality, the size of fish that we've been catching seems to be a little bit better. Still not catching them in bunches or numbers. They're still pretty scattered and spread out, but the quality of the bite and the more aggressiveness of the bite has definitely picked up. The patterns it's working right now, you can go to the back of the creeks, and that bite's still there. And that bite is going to continue to be in the back of the creeks until the water cools off some more. And then the one thing that's going to run these fish out of the back of the creeks is when the people at Bagnell Dam, Ameren Electric, start dropping the lake. That'll pull those fish out of the back of the creeks, and they'll pull onto these creek channel banks, and they'll actually condense the lake down, 3, 4, 5 feet. And it actually will improve fishing. The fish won't be so scattered. If you find some fish, you usually catch them in bunches. So when I'm pitching docks and going to docks at the back of the creeks, you can use a variety of baits. It's still fall patterns, so it's still junk fishing, so to speak. So you can use about your favorite lure you want to use. But I still throw the Crocagator Zapper jig with a net bait pocket craw. I think this one's a senior pocket craw. I kind of experimented with that. The one I like the most is the baby pocket craw. Tube has more of a tube hollow body and kind of stands up a little bit better, but that's a good bait to pitch around the docks. Actually, we caught one yesterday about 5.5 in the back of a creek, pitching docks doing that. You can still catch them on shaky heads in the back of the creeks, tubes, square bill crankbaits, or low light conditions. You can throw topwaters back there and catch them along those docks, spinner baits and so forth. So that's kind of back of the creek bite right now. But the back of the creek can be a little bit frustrating too, because you can go back there and there can be shad back there and the fish busting everywhere at times, and you can throw everything but the kitchen sink and you don't seem to catch them. So one creek, it may be a little bit more active than the next creek. You just kind of have to do some searching around and find an area that you feel comfortable with, and then use a technique you feel comfortable with and go in there and pitch those docks with your favorite lure, and you'll probably get bit. Another pattern that's working right now is the bluff pattern. That's a mainstay pretty much here on Lake the Ozarks in November. As the water cools off, the main lake bluffs turn on, but not only just the main lake bluffs. You don't want to overlook those little bluffs, those insignificant little bluffs that are kind of hard to find that are back in these creeks. Been catching fish on topwaters along those bluffs when the wind's not blowing too hard. When the wind blows a lot harder, then I'd go to a spinnerbait on some of those bluff ends where if the wind's blowing so hard and your topwater bait just seems to be skipping, skiing across the top of that water, then I'd go to a spinnerbait, something you can get down just a little bit underneath the waves. But if this one here, for example, it's a War Eagle spinnerbait. It's actually a 3/4 ounce. I like to throw a little heavier bait, and it's got a number. It's probably either number 5, 6, or 7 I think it's more of a number 6 willow leaf blade. When it's going to be a little windier out there, you want to use a little bigger blade. Creates a little more vibration, and you're out there hoping that you're around these school of gizzard shad, which are bigger than the threadfin shad, and so they'll actually draw the bigger fish. So, but we caught a couple fish, pushing 3 pound range in some wind yesterday, throwing spinnerbait on some of those little bluff end points back in the creeks. If it's calm, you can throw your favorite topwater bait on those bluff ends. I like to throw a crocodile buzzbait. Um, and where these fish are going to sit up on those bluff ends is they're going to sit up right next to or in behind or beside big rocks, big dark rocks. And so you want to be able to make a really accurate cast on these rocks. And so I have more control with a buzzbait than I do any other lure. Whopper Plopper's good, Pop-Rs, Zara Spooks. You choose your favorite topwater bait. Something you can throw and make a really precise cast in around them big dark rocks. And those fish will come out from underneath those rocks and hit those baits. I threw a buzzbait this morning just solely for the first 3 hours and caught a small limit just on the buzzbait, just doing that, throwing it around those big rocks. So that's a bait you can throw there. You can still throw worms on the points right now. I mean, there's shad everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's shad flipping, it seems like. And so you can still catch fish on the points. Two of the places that didn't get bit on the last couple 3 days, that there is shad activity there, but I didn't get bit that much in the main lake pockets and did not get bit much on the main lake flats. Could have just been a timing thing more than anything else, because in my opinion, if the shad are there, the fish are going to be there too, and there are shad in those areas. And you may have to fish 2 or 3 or 4 pockets and then find that one that just holds bass. That's pretty common in fall fishing. So that's kind of what's going on at Lake of the Ozarks up here in the upper Osage area. Like I said, as the water conditions get better, we're on get here past the turnover. I think the bite's going to get even better. It'll be a good topwater bite all the way through the month of November, on up into first part of December, and then when they start dropping the lake, it'll really suck those fish onto these channel banks, and that's when you can go in there with your wiggle warts and your jigs. I love to throw in the jigs and your creature baits on shaky heads on those channel banks and catch a lot of fish, and you can catch them more in bunches there too. So good luck in your fishing. Be safe, be careful. The nice thing about fall fishing right now, no boaters out. Everybody's going deer hunting, which leaves more of the water to us fishermen. So it's a great time of year to be on Lake of the Ozarks. Thank you.